promised I was going to show you my method of cleaning this old aged plastic and rubber. Particularly this piece right here in the W123 is always ugly. Right after I got the car, I put some 303 protectant on it, and it looked good for about a week. And as soon as that dried off, it came back to this gray color. The same on the bumper rubbers, you know, and all over the car. I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I've got to find a way that I can get this dead rubber and dead plastic off. Just like polishing paint, you want to get through that dead paint layer if you're going to do a cut and buff. Sometimes that takes fine sandpaper like 2000 grit or 1500 grit sandpaper. Well, I can't use sandpaper on this. And I got to thinking, I says, maybe I could use Scotch-Brite. You know, this is one of my favorite products, the purple Scotch-Brite pads. I use them for all types of cleaning and detailing, particularly around engines on cars. And then I got to think, what kind of solution can I use? Look at this over here. Now this was done with my new technique about 2 weeks ago, and I still have not added any protectant. And if you look very closely, there's no scratches from the Scotch-Brite pad. Now if you get a microscope out, granted you may see a few scratches, but it still looks a lot better than this over here. So I kept thinking what kind of solution I could use. Why not try my favorite new cleaner? I'm going to call this Miracle Cleaner, because this is what I used to clean the engine compartment with, but this is the Dawn Professional Heavy Duty Degreaser. So I thought maybe this will cut into the plastic and rubber, and along with the Scotch-Brite pad, we'll get that top layer of dead material off, and lo and behold, that's the result right there. So this is how I do it. I have lots of rags. You can go to Lowe's or Home Depot and get one of those bags of painter's rags. You're going to need lots of rags when you do this, when you work around the car. But this pretty much is going to work on all the black plastic and rubber on the exterior of these older Mercedes. And I'll just soak it up with the Dawn degreaser, and then I'll start rubbing it. Just like I'm sanding a car. Now this is going to take a while. It's going to require some patience and a lot of scrubbing. Now on real rough parts, you can actually feel it start to smooth out, and then you know you've probably gone deep enough into the plastic. Now the plastic doesn't take as much rubbing as the rubber does, which I'll show you here in a second. But I'm going to put my hand underneath and get into this, okay? And like any other detailing, you can take this about as far as you want. You know, if you want perfection, you can pull this off the car, but I'm not going to do that. I often tell my guys who help me on my cars, you got to remember the 80-20 rule of perfection. It takes 20% of your effort to get to the 80 percentile level of perfection, and if you want to go that extra 20%, it's going to take 80% of your effort. So I usually settle for about 90 to 95%. And I just keep rubbing it until it starts to dry out. Now this feels like it's getting there. And you see, even in a small piece like this, you've got to rub quite a bit. So if you don't like rubbing, I haven't found a power tool that will do this very well, because you've got so many different angles, cracks, crevices, and contoured surfaces that you have to deal with. And then I'll take the dry rag and I'll polish it. Literally polish it out with the dry rag. All right, there you have it. I'm going to finish it up by just spraying on a light coat of the degreaser. And I won't use Scotch-Brite pad. I'll just use a rag to kind of buff it out. So make sure you get it really clean. See, you're still picking up a little color there. And then when you're all done, I'll just take another clean rag and wet it down and wipe this down with clean water to get the excess degreaser out of the plastic. Okay, now I want to take you down the side of the car and show you some other plastic pieces I'm working on. Notice I put a piece of tape. That's to provide a fine line so you can see the difference between what I've cleaned and what I haven't cleaned. Let's see if that shows up in the camera. I'll just pull the tape off. Okay. Yeah, I think you can definitely see the line right there. You can see this is how most of this plastic looks on these W123s. And this is after cleaning it only. Once again, no protectant has been added. It might be a little harder to see it on the door handle here. I'll pull the tape off. See if you can see a line there. Okay, that one is not so obvious. I think the lighting is not as good. But this door handle actually isn't that bad compared to some I've seen. But this technique also works good on these plastic door handles on the W123. Now let's go back to the front bumper, and I'm going to do these two rubber pieces. This side here, the left side, has been done, and look at how nice that looks. Now let's swing over and look at the right side. Now this is pretty obvious. A couple days ago I started experimenting with this edge right here, and I did this corner using that technique. Once again, no protectant has been added, but look at the rest of this. So I'm going to sit down now and we're going to tackle this to make the right side look as good as the left. These particular rubber parts on the W123 are probably the most difficult to get looking nice again, because this rubber sits out in the sun, and as it ages it develops these little pores in the rubber, and that takes away from any kind of sheen you can put to it. But this takes some real elbow grease. I'm just going to work on this top edge first. And you can see I'm soaking it up with the degreaser first. And when you rub your fingers over, you can actually feel the roughness. So what I'm going to do is try to polish on this with a Scotch-Brite pad until I don't feel the roughness or even hear it. I think you can hear it right now if I get a little closer. It's almost like sanding wood with 100 grit sandpaper. So we'll keep working this until I feel it, it's smoothing out. Now in this corner, you're really getting a lot of roughness and you can hear it, because this is the side that really gets the exposure. Now this doesn't come off like dead paint. I wish it did, because dead paint can come off fairly rapidly. I'm going to stop right now and just wipe this for you so you can get an idea just how much or how little we are actually removing from the rubber. Okay, there you go. You can see it's pretty dirty, so I'll keep working this. That's why I said you're going to need a bunch of rags. I'll keep working this until I'm getting very little color out of the rubber. As I'm rubbing it now, I can begin to feel it's not as rough. It's still a little rough, but it's not as rough as when I began. Okay, let's go ahead and wipe it down again. Let's take a clean section of this rag. Yeah, I'm still getting her. And at some point you'll want to change your Scotch-Brite pad. These will start to lose some of their cut after a while. All right, let's wipe this down. All right. You can see that's a lot better. You're never going to get it so it doesn't take anything off. But I think that's pretty good for this section. Now I'm going to move around and do the end, and then we'll come back and talk about adding protectant. After you've completed cleaning these parts and letting them dry, you'll want to add a high quality protectant. Now I'm going to emphasize high quality if you want this to last. It's not going to last, it's going to start to fade again unless you use a high quality protectant, and you'll probably have to put some on every 3 months if you want it to keep looking nice. Now the protectants I use and recommend are either Worth Rubber Care Silicone Free Protectant or 303. Those are the two I recommend. This sprays on very nicely, but I do protect it from going all over the place. And what I'm going to do is just spray on a nice light coat, almost like putting on spray paint, okay? All right, now most people will just take and get a rag and wipe that off, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave this on there, and I'm going to let this rubber soak this up. It may take a couple hours before I come back and buff this off, but I want to give it a lot of time to let it soak into the rubber and the plastic before I wipe it dry for maximum protection. I wanted to show you the front bumper and the front bumper rubbers. After I spent a few hours removing the bumper, fixing the bumper rubber, detailing out all the rubber pieces and waxing and polishing everything. I even cleaned in behind. But what was really interesting about this particular W123 is it was so clean in behind the bumper. Never seen one like that. So this is a very special 240D. Using my new technique to clean plastic and rubber parts, look what I did with this spare tire. It almost looks like a brand new tire. So when I put this back into the trunk, that's almost showroom condition. After seeing what this procedure can do to a front bumper, I think I'm getting carried away. Look at this seal for the hood. Look over here. I've cleaned this, and this is what it looks like originally. Now I'm looking at these coolant hoses and thinking, man, I can really make these coolant hoses look beautiful again. Don't we just love detailing? Maybe you thought I was kidding when I messed around cleaning up this heater hose, but I came back in 2 days and look at this. I haven't even put any protectant on it. I guess I wasn't kidding around. Now I get to clean all the hoses in the entire engine compartment. And look at that top strip for the hood seal. Look at how well that came out as well. So I'm really excited about my new method of cleaning black plastic and rubber.